The motives for living in a tree may vary, but it's scientific fact that trees provide incredible health benefits. Trees not only give us the essential oxygen we need to breathe, but recent studies show that they actively remove deadly pollution from the air. It's not always fairy tale castles in the sky, however. A lucky few build luxury tree houses to be sure, but others live in trees because of desperation, tradition, or a sacrifice to further a valiant cause. Number 10. Activist Julia Butterfly Hill. In 1997, Julia Butterfly Hill climbed to the top of a 1,000-year-old redwood tree that was 55 meters tall. She climbed that treacherous height to tree sit for 1 week to protest the clear-cutting of an ancient redwood forest. It ended up being 738 days before she touched ground again. She remained in that tree despite terrifying storms and constant harassment from helicopters, loggers, and security guards sent by the Pacific Lumber Company. For 2 years, she watched in horror as the forest surrounding her treetop dwelling was destroyed. Clear-cutting is the fastest and cheapest way to harvest timber. Hill finally came down after the Pacific Lumber Company agreed to preserve 61 meters of the old-growth forest around the tree's perimeter. In exchange, the logging company received $50,000 that had been raised by Hill's supporters. Welcome to Top 10 Event YouTube channel. Subscribe and bell the notification button to get new videos. Number 9. The Karaoke people. In Papua, Indonesia, there is a treetop community that existed in total isolation until missionaries intruded in the 1970s. While they reportedly don't practice cannibalism anymore, they are notorious for being one of the last active cannibalistic tribes. The average height of a home is about 10 meters off the ground, but some are as high as 35 meters. The Karaoke construct the floors to be incredibly sturdy, so each home can hold about a dozen people. Family groups live together, along with their pets and other domestic animals like livestock. There are many possible reasons why the Karaoke live in the trees. It could be to avoid their bothersome neighbors, evil spirits, flooding, or just the hordes of malaria-carrying mosquitoes that terrorize them below. Number 8. 95-year-old Njuguna Njianga. For 4 years, Njuguna Njianga of Kenya lived his days in the shelter of a tree trunk because he had nowhere else to go. He said, "Life drove me here." Without identification, he was not able to receive a living stipend from the government. When asked his name or where he was from, he often gave conflicting statements. It seems that he couldn't remember the details of his life anymore. After all, he was 95 years old. The kind-hearted villagers began to take care of him to the best of their ability. They brought him food, blankets, and other supplies. 2 weeks later, social services was able to place him in a new home that was sponsored by the county government. Number 7. Luxurious Treehouse Community. In the heart of the Costa Rican rainforest lies 600 pristine acres with 40 solar-powered tree houses. Finca Bella Vista is Shangri-La suspended in the trees. The homes are all built among the trees. Some exist on stilts of locally grown teak, and others use the trees as anchors. The most impressive, however, are fully arboreal homes built above the oldest trees with the deepest root systems. The on-site botanist needs to approve these, of course. El Castillo Mastate was approved, and now it stands 27 meters above ground. Number 6. Self-Reliant Nick Weston. By 2050, 66% of the world's population is predicted to reside in cities. For some, city life just isn't a fulfilling way to live. Nick Weston wrote, "I took stock of my London lifestyle and decided a change was in order." He was fed up working at a job he despised and paying sky-high prices for food and rent. He had the wild dream of being self-reliant and living more in tandem with nature. So he began work on a project that was more closely aligned with his values. Weston resided in the woods of Ashdown Forest for 6 months. His survival depended on gathering some staple herbs and hunting rabbit, pigeon, and eel. Number 5. Treehouse villages in the forests of Germany. For 6 consecutive years, there's been a small treehouse village in the Hambach forest near the German-Belgian border. The forest is 12,000 years old, and it's being eradicated because of coal mining. The forest was bought by RU, a powerful energy company, in the late 1970s. Since then, 90% of the Hambach forest has been cut down. It used to be the size of Manhattan. Number 4. Lumberjack Jim Allen. In the 1930s, Jim Allen, a lumberjack by trade, found himself alone in the redwood forests of California during a turbulent storm. He managed to take refuge by hiding in the burned-out trunk of a giant redwood. He was overwhelmed with gratitude for the tree's protection. He figured that no house could be as good as the genuine thing. So he purchased a fallen tree from the local lumber company and set out to carve out his home from the source. The tree was 4 meters wide at the stump and 81 meters tall. With the help of one other man, Allen hand-carved a 3-room home and lived there for 7 years. Number 3. Barefoot Nomad Mcdodge. Mcdodge has been living off the grid for almost 30 years in the HOH rainforest of the Pacific Northwest. Dodge lives inside a variety of mossy tree stumps as he wanders around. He says, there's not a better bedroom in the world. And he never dreams of a normal life. He wakes up every morning and forages for his breakfast. He's also a scavenger. So he'll eat roadkill or an elk killed by a mountain lion, for example. A lot of his free time is spent reading. If he likes the book, he'll plant a tree and share the book. If he doesn't believe in its value, he'll plant a tree anyway. But he'll use the book as toilet paper or fire starter. Number 2. Claustrophobic Shawnee Shasser. Shawnee Shasser is a purple-haired grandma with claustrophobia who adores the feeling of being mid-air. Since 1992, she had been happily living in a treehouse in her own backyard. Her sanctuary in the sky was on a half-acre of wooded land. There was a man-made pond and even a waterfall. Sadly, Miami-Dade County demanded that she demolish her home. They claimed that it was an unsafe structure. South Florida is prone to hurricanes, and the building codes are rigid. Ricardo Roig of Miami-Dade's Code Enforcement Division said, "This has got to be my first time ever of somebody living in a treehouse." Number 1. Early settlers in the Wild West. After loggers swept over the old-growth forests of the Pacific Northwest in the late 1800s, many pioneers were just coming across on wagon trains to settle down with their families. To their surprise, these early settlers discovered a mauled landscape dotted with enormous, towering tree stumps that the lumber companies had left behind.